The moment Nora Jensen saw the cowboy's smile falter after she told him about her barren womb, she would know exactly how this story ended. But Logan Keller surprised her by laughing and saying something about orphans that made her heart crack open in a way she had spent 6 years learning to prevent. The church social in Prescott, Arizona Territory, was in full swing that September evening in 1888, and Nora had been doing her very best to avoid Logan Keller for the better part of 2 hours. She stood near the refreshment table, pretending to be deeply invested in Mrs. Patterson's detailed account of her prize-winning preserves at the county fair, but her attention kept drifting to the tall cowboy with the sun-weathered face and the easy laugh that seemed to fill whatever room he occupied. He had been watching her all night, she knew, because every time she glanced in his direction, his green eyes were already on her, and that lazy smile would spread across his face like he knew a secret she had not yet figured out. "Are you even listening to me, Nora, Mrs. Patterson asked, her tone sharp enough to cut through Nora's distraction. "Yes, of course," Nora lied, turning her full attention back to the older woman. "Your strawberry preserves. You were saying the judge commented on the clarity." Mrs. Patterson's expression softened slightly. "Well, yes. But I have moved on to discussing the raspberry now. Really, dear, you seem quite distracted this evening." Nora felt heat rise in her cheeks. At 24, she should have been better at hiding her thoughts, but she had never been particularly skilled at deception. "I apologize. I suppose the heat is getting to me." It was not the heat. The evening had cooled considerably, and a pleasant breeze drifted through the open windows of the church hall. It was Logan Keller, and the way he had been finding excuses to talk to her for the past 3 months, ever since he had started working at the Double R Ranch just outside town. It was the way he had asked her to save him a dance tonight, his voice warm and teasing, and the way her treacherous heart had leaped at the request before her mind could remind her of all the reasons she needed to keep her distance. "Well, if you are unwell, perhaps you should step outside for some air," Mrs. Patterson suggested, though her tone implied she knew perfectly well what was really bothering Nora. Before Nora could respond, a familiar voice spoke from just behind her shoulder. "That is an excellent idea, Mrs. Patterson. Miss Jensen, may I escort you outside? I would hate for you to feel faint." Nora turned to find Logan Keller standing closer than propriety strictly allowed, his hat in his hands and that insufferable smile on his face. Up close, she could see the small scar above his left eyebrow and the way his dark hair curled slightly at the collar of his pressed shirt. He had clearly made an effort for tonight, trading his usual work clothes for clean trousers and a vest that actually matched. "I am perfectly fine, Mr. Keller," Nora said, trying to keep her voice steady. "There is no need for you to trouble yourself." "No trouble at all," he said easily. "Besides, you promised me a dance and I aim to collect, but perhaps some air first if you are feeling poorly." Mrs. Patterson made a small noise that might have been approval or amusement. "Go on, Nora. I can see you are not interested in preserves tonight." Nora opened her mouth to protest, but Logan had already offered his arm, and refusing him in front of Mrs. Patterson would only create more gossip. She placed her hand lightly on his forearm, feeling the solid muscle beneath the fabric of his shirt, and allowed him to guide her toward the side door that led to the small garden behind the church. The night air was indeed cooler, and Nora took a deep breath, trying to settle her nerves. Paper lanterns had been strung between the trees, casting a soft glow over the garden path. She could still hear the fiddle music from inside, but out here it was muted, almost peaceful. "You have been avoiding me all evening," Logan said, and there was no accusation in his tone, just simple observation. "I have been socializing," Nora countered. "That is the point of a social, is it not? socializing with everyone except me, he pointed out. Did I do something to offend you, Miss Jensen? Nora sighed and pulled her hand from his arm, wrapping her arms around herself despite the warmth of the evening. No, Mr. Keller, you have done nothing wrong. Then why do I get the feeling you are trying to put distance between us? He moved to stand in front of her, not crowding her but close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. And why do you keep calling me Mr. Keller when I have asked you at least a dozen times to call me Logan? Because maintaining formality is appropriate, Nora said, but even she could hear how weak the argument sounded. Appropriate, Logan repeated, and something flickered across his face. Not quite hurt, but something close to it. Nora, I have been trying to court you for 3 months now. I have been patient. I have been respectful. I have done everything I know how to do to show you that my intentions are serious. But every time I think we are making progress, you pull away. So I am going to ask you straight out, because I am not a man who likes dancing around the truth. Do you have feelings for me, or am I wasting my time? Nora's breath caught in her throat. This was it. This was the moment she had been dreading since the first time Logan had made her laugh with one of his silly stories about life on the ranch. This was the moment when she would have to hurt him, just as she had hurt Thomas Miller and David Crawford and James Henderson before him. Logan, she started, and his eyes lit up at the sound of his given name on her lips. That made it worse somehow. You are not wasting your time. You are. You are a wonderful man. You are kind and funny and hardworking, and any woman would be lucky to have your affection. I hear a but coming, Logan said, and his smile had faded now, replaced by something more guarded. But there is something you need to know about me, Nora continued, forcing herself to maintain eye contact even though every instinct told her to look away. Something that has ended every courtship I have ever attempted. I am telling you now because I would rather hurt you a little now than hurt you much worse later. Logan waited, and she could see him bracing himself. Did he think she was promised to someone else? That she was in love with another man? If only it were something so simple. When I was 12 years old, I contracted scarlet fever, Nora said, and the words came out flat, rehearsed, because she had said them before. I nearly died. I survived, but the fever, it damaged me internally. The doctor told my parents that I would never be able to bear children. That is why I have never married, Logan. That is why I pull away every time things become serious, because I know what men want from marriage and I cannot give it to them. She watched his face carefully, waiting for the change. With Thomas, it had been a slow withdrawal, a gradual cooling of his affection until he stopped calling altogether. David had been more direct, telling her kindly but firmly that he needed a wife who could give him sons. James had been the worst, assuring her it did not matter and then proposing to someone else 3 weeks later. But Logan's expression did not close off. Instead, his eyebrows drew together in confusion, as if she had just said something he could not quite understand. That is why you have been avoiding me, he asked, because you cannot have children. Yes, Nora said, and she hated how small her voice sounded. I understand if you wish to end things here. I will not hold it against you. It is better this way, truly. Logan was quiet for a long moment, and Nora prepared herself for the inevitable goodbye. But then, instead of the withdrawal she expected, he smiled. Not a polite smile or a pitying smile, but that same warm, genuine smile that had been getting her into trouble for 3 months. Well, he said, and there was something almost playful in his tone, the orphanage over in the county has plenty who need us. Nora stared at him. What? The orphanage, Logan repeated as if it were the most obvious solution in the world. You know, the one that Mrs. Carmichael runs about 10 miles east of here. Last I heard, They had close to 20 children and not nearly enough resources to care for them all properly. If we cannot make children of our own, we can provide a home for children who need one. Nora felt something twist in her chest, something painful and hopeful and terrifying all at once. You cannot mean that. Why not? Logan asked, and he sounded genuinely curious. Nora, I have been falling in love with you since the day you told me to stop tracking mud into the general store and then helped me pick out fabric for new curtains anyway. I want to build a life with you. Children would be part of that life, yes, but it does not matter to me whether those children share my blood or not. Men always say that, Nora said, and she could hear the bitterness in her own voice. They say it does not matter, that they understand, but then later they realize what they are giving up. They see other men with sons to carry on their name, and they regret their choice. I will not be someone's regret, Logan. Something shifted in Logan's expression then, something more serious than she had seen from him before. He took a step closer, and when he spoke, his voice was low and steady. I was an orphan, he said. Did you know that? Nora shook her head, suddenly unable to speak. My mother died when I was 6, fever like you. My father followed her within the year, drank himself to death, from what I understand, though I was too young to know it at the time. Logan's hands were still holding his hat, and Nora watched his fingers tighten on the brim. I spent the next 10 years being passed around. A few months here with a family who needed an extra hand. A season there with a wagon train that needed someone small to help with the horses. I slept in barns and ate leftovers and wore clothes that other boys had outgrown. I was never anybody's son. I was just the extra mouth they were being charitable by feeding. Nora's eyes burned, but she refused to let the tears fall. Logan, I did not know. Most people do not, he said with a slight shrug. I do not talk about it much because I do not want pity. I turned out fine. I found work. I learned a trade. I can support a family now, but I have never forgotten what it felt like to be a child that nobody wanted. So when I say that blood does not matter to me, I mean it. Those children at the orphanage, they are growing up the same way I did, wondering if anyone will ever choose them. If I can be the person who chooses them, if we can be the family they need, then that is not a consolation prize, Nora. That is the whole point. A tear escaped despite Nora's best efforts, trailing down her cheek. Logan reached up and gently brushed it away with his thumb, and the tenderness of the gesture nearly undid her completely. You really mean it, she whispered. You truly do not care that I cannot bear children. I care that you have been carrying this around like a burden for years, Logan said. I care that you have been pushing people away because you think you are somehow less than you should be. But the inability to conceive does not make you broken, Nora. It just makes the path forward different than what you might have imagined. Nora let out a shaky breath. I do not know what to say. Say you will give me a chance, Logan said. Say you will stop avoiding me and let me court you properly. Say that you feel even a fraction of what I feel and we can figure out the rest together. I feel more than a fraction, Nora admitted, and saying it aloud felt like stepping off a cliff. I have been trying so hard not to let myself care about you, but it has not been working. I think about you constantly. When something good happens, you are the first person I want to tell. When I see you with the children at church, helping them with their lessons or making them laugh, I start to imagine what it would be like if. If what? Logan prompted gently. If we could build a life together, Nora finished. But I am terrified, Logan. I have been hurt before. I have watched men realize that I am not enough. I do not think I could survive that again, especially not with you. Then I will just have to make sure I never give you reason to doubt, Logan said. He took both of her hands in his grip warm and solid. I cannot promise that everything will be easy. I cannot promise that we will not face challenges, but I can promise that I will not walk away because you cannot give me something you never had control over in the first place. I want you, Nora, all of you, exactly as you are." The fiddle music swelled from inside the church, a lively reel that made the lantern seem to dance in the breeze. Nora looked up at Logan, at this man who had somehow managed to say all the right things, who had looked at her biggest fear and brushed it aside like it was nothing. "One condition," she said finally. "Name it. If you change your mind, if you realize later that this is not what you want, you have to tell me. You have to be honest with me. Do not stay out of obligation or guilt. Promise me that." Logan's expression turned solemn. "I promise. And I want the same from you. If you decide that I am not the man you want, if you realize your feelings are not as strong as you thought, you tell me." "Deal, deal," Nora agreed. "Good." Logan's smile returned, bright and warm and full of mischief. "Now about that dance you promised me." Nora laughed, the sound surprising her with its lightness. When had she last felt this light? "I suppose I did promise." "You absolutely did," Logan confirmed. He offered his arm again, and this time when Nora took it, she did not feel the need to guard her heart quite so carefully. "Fair warning, I am not much of a dancer. I can ride a horse and rope a steer and fix just about anything that breaks, but dancing is not my strong suit." "Then we will be quite a pair," Nora said as they walked back toward the church. "I tend to lead when I should follow." "Good," Logan said. "I like a woman who knows her own mind." They rejoined the social, and true to his word, Logan was a terrible dancer. He stepped on her toes twice and lost the rhythm of the music more than once. But he laughed at his own mistakes, and when Nora tried to show him the proper steps, he pulled her closer than strictly necessary, and whispered that he was doing it on purpose, just to have an excuse to hold her hand longer. "You are impossible," Nora said, but she was smiling so hard her cheeks hurt. "I am persistent," Logan corrected. "There is a difference." Mrs. Patterson watched them from the refreshment table, her eyebrows raised in obvious approval. Sarah Mitchell, Nora's closest friend, caught her eye from across the room and mouthed something that looked like "finally." Even Reverend Thornton, leading the music with his fiddle, seemed to nod approvingly in their direction. When the dance ended, Logan did not immediately release her hand. "Walk you home?" he asked. "That would be lovely," Nora said. They made their goodbyes and slipped out into the night. Nora's small house was only 3 streets away, close enough that a chaperone was not strictly necessary but far enough that they would have time to talk. The streets of Prescott were quiet at this hour, most of the town's residents either at the social or already in bed. Gas lamps flickered at the corners, casting pools of yellow light on the dusty road. "Tell me about the orphanage," Nora said as they walked. "You seem to know quite a bit about it." Logan nodded. "I have been there a few times. The ranch donates what it can, supplies mostly, and I usually volunteer to make the delivery. Mrs. Carmichael runs the place with her daughter, Helen. They do the best they can, but they are understaffed and underfunded. The building is old and needs repairs. They barely have enough food to feed everyone, and the county keeps threatening to shut them down if they cannot meet certain standards." "That is terrible," Nora said. "Those poor children." "Mrs. Carmichael does not give up easily," Logan said. "But she is fighting an uphill battle. The county would rather scatter the children to workhouses or farm them out as cheap labor than provide proper funding for the orphanage. They do not see the value in keeping the children together, in giving them any kind of stability." Nora thought about what Logan had told her earlier about being passed from place to place, never belonging anywhere. "Is that what happened to you? Were you sent to work?" "Mostly," Logan confirmed. "I was lucky in some ways. The families I stayed with were not cruel, just indifferent. I had enough to eat, usually. I learned useful skills. But I never felt like I mattered, not as a person. I was just free labor with a mouth to feed. I am so sorry, Nora said softly. No child should have to feel that way. Logan shrugged. It made me who I am. I learned self-reliance. I learned not to depend on anyone else for my happiness. But I also learned that when I have children, whether they are born to me or not, I want them to know they are wanted. I want them to feel secure and loved and valued. Not because they can work or because they serve some purpose, but just because they exist. They had reached Nora's gate, a white picket fence that surrounded a small yard and a neat wooden house. Nora's parents had left her the house when they moved to California 3 years ago, wanting to be closer to Nora's married sister. It was small but comfortable, and Nora had made it her own with flower boxes and lace curtains. "Would you like to come in for coffee?" Nora asked, then immediately felt her cheeks warm. "I mean, I know it is late, but I could put on a pot and we could sit on the porch." "I would like that," Logan said, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "But maybe just for a little while. I do not want to damage your reputation." "I think my reputation can survive a cup of coffee," Nora said dryly. "I am 24, not a debutante." Logan followed her through the gate and onto the porch while Nora went inside to prepare the coffee. She lit the lamp in the kitchen and measured out the grounds with shaking hands. Was she really doing this? Was she really allowing herself to hope again? When the coffee was ready, she carried 2 cups out to the porch where Logan sat on the top step, his long legs stretched out in front of him. She handed him a cup and settled beside him, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "This is nice," Logan said after a moment. "The house, the porch, the town, it feels like a real home." "It is a good house," Nora agreed. "A bit big for just me, but I have always thought that if I ever married, there would be room for a family." "Room for children," Logan said, and it was not a question. "Yes," Nora said. "I have an extra bedroom upstairs that gets wonderful morning light." "I always thought it would make a perfect nursery, but then I realized that would never happen, and I started using it for storage instead. But lately, I have been thinking." "Thinking what?" Logan prompted. "Thinking that storage was a waste of a perfectly good room," Nora said. "Thinking that maybe there are other ways to fill a house with laughter and noise and all the chaos that comes with children." Logan set down his coffee cup and turned to face her fully. "Are you saying what I think you are saying?" "I am saying that I want to visit the orphanage with you," Nora said. "I want to see it for myself. I want to meet Mrs. Carmichael and the children. I want to understand what we might be taking on if we decide to move forward with this." "We," Logan repeated, and there was wonder in his voice. "You said we." "Yes, we," Nora confirmed. "You and me, together. That is what courtship means, is it not? Figuring out if we can build a life as partners." Logan reached out and took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. "I would very much like to take you to the orphanage. But I want you to understand something first. This cannot be just about proving to you that I mean what I say. If we are going to do this, if we are going to open our hearts and our home to children who need us, it has to be because we both want it. Not because you feel like you owe it to me or because you think it is the only way I will stay. Those children deserve better than that." Nora squeezed his hand. "You are right, and I do want it. Not just because of you, but because I have spent so many years grieving something I never had that I forgot to think about what I could have instead. I have been so focused on what my body cannot do that I never considered what my heart could do." "Your heart is extraordinary," Logan said. "I see the way you are with people in this town. The way you help Mrs. Patterson even when she is being difficult. The way you tutor the children who struggle with their reading. The way you brought food to the Thompson family when Mr. Thompson was injured and could not work. You have so much love to give, Nora. Any child would be blessed to have you as a mother." Tears pricked at Nora's eyes again, but this time they were different. Not tears of grief or fear, but tears of something that felt dangerously close to hope. "When can we go?" she asked. "To the orphanage." "I am making a delivery on Saturday," Logan said. "I could pick you up in the morning if you would like to come along. We could spend the day there, help out however we can, get to know the place." "Saturday," Nora repeated. "Yes, I would like that very much." Logan smiled and lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "It is a date, then." They sat together on the porch until their coffee grew cold, talking about everything and nothing. Logan told her about growing up without roots, about the moment he finally earned enough money to buy his own horse and saddle, about the day he rode into Prescott and decided this would be the place he finally stopped running. Nora told him about her childhood before the fever, about her parents and sister, about the years after when she had to adjust to a future that looked nothing like what she had imagined. "You resent it?" Logan asked at one point. "The fever, what it took from you?" Nora considered the question carefully. "I did, for a long time. I was angry at God, at my body, at the unfairness of it all. But anger is exhausting to carry around. Eventually, I had to make a choice. I could spend my whole life mourning what I lost, or I could try to find meaning in what remained. Most days, I chose the latter. But there were days when the grief would sneak up on me, usually when I saw a mother with a baby or when someone in town announced they were expecting." "And now?" Logan asked. "Now I think maybe the fever did not take anything from me," Nora said slowly. "It just changed the path. I cannot bear children, but that does not mean I cannot be a mother. It just means I will become a mother in a different way." "I think you are one of the bravest people I have ever met," Logan said. "Most people would have let the grief consume them. You found a way through." "I had help," Nora said. "Sarah, my friend from the social, she has been my anchor. And Reverend Thornton, he has a way of saying the right thing at the right time. This town has been good to me, even when I have been difficult." "Difficult how?" Logan asked with a grin. "You seem perfectly pleasant to me." "I have been known to be stubborn," Nora admitted. "And I have a tendency to push people away when they get too close. You may have noticed." "I may have picked up on that, yes," Logan said, "but I can be stubborn too. I think we are well matched." The night grew late and eventually Logan stood to leave. "I should go. Early start tomorrow." "But I will see you at church on Sunday." "Yes," Nora said, "and Saturday for the orphanage." "Saturday," Logan confirmed. He hesitated for a moment, then leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to her cheek. "Good night, Nora." "Good night, Logan," she whispered, touching the place where his lips had been. She watched him walk down the path and through the gate, watched him turn back once to wave before disappearing into the night. Then she sat back down on the porch step, her coffee cup forgotten, and allowed herself to feel something she had not felt in a very long time. She allowed herself to feel hope. The days leading up to Saturday passed with agonizing slowness. Nora threw herself into her work at the general store where she kept the books and helped with customers, but her mind kept wandering to the upcoming visit to the orphanage. She found herself wondering what the children would be like, whether they would accept her, whether she would know how to talk to them. Her own experience with children was limited mostly to the Sunday school class. She sometimes taught at church, but those children had parents to return to at the end of the lesson. The orphanage children had no one. On Thursday evening, Sarah Mitchell stopped by with a basket of mending and an obvious desire to gossip. "You and Logan Keller looked quite cozy at the social," Sarah said without preamble, settling into one of Nora's kitchen chairs. "I take it you finally stopped running away from that poor man." "I was not running away," Nora protested, but even she could hear how weak the argument sounded. Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Nora, you have been dodging him for months. Every time he came into the store, you suddenly remembered important business in the back room. Every time he sat near you at church, you found somewhere else to be. That man has the patience of Job." Nora sighed and sat down across from her friend. "I told him about the fever, about not being able to have children." Sarah's expression softened. "Oh, Nora, what did he say?" "He said the orphanage has plenty of children who need us," Nora said, and even now the words made her chest feel tight. "He said it does not matter to him that I cannot bear children. He was an orphan himself, did you know that? He wants to provide a home for children who need one." "That man is a keeper," Sarah said firmly. "Please tell me you did not push him away." "I did not," Nora said. "In fact, I am going with him to the orphanage on Saturday. We are going to visit, see if there is a way we can help." Sarah's eyes lit up. "That is wonderful." "Oh, Nora, I am so happy for you. You deserve this. You deserve someone who sees you for who you are and loves you anyway." "We are not talking about love yet," Nora said quickly. "We are just courting." "He is in love with you," Sarah said with absolute certainty. "Anyone with eyes can see it. The way he looks at you, it is like you hung the moon. And do not even try to tell me you do not feel the same way. I saw your face when you were dancing with him. You were glowing." Nora felt her cheeks warm. "Perhaps I have developed some feelings for him. He is a good man." "He is an exceptional man," Sarah corrected. "And I think this could be really good for both of you, but Nora, I have to ask, are you sure you are ready for this? Taking in orphan children is not a small commitment. It will change your entire life." "I know," Nora said. "But my life has felt so empty for so long, Sarah. I have been existing but not really living. I go to work, I come home, I go to church, and I do it all over again. But nothing ever changes. Nothing ever grows. I want more than that. I want a full house and noise and chaos and all the messy, complicated parts of having a family." "Then I think you should do it," Sarah said. "And I will be here to help however I can. Although I have to warn you, I am much better at mending clothes than I am at dealing with children." Nora laughed. "I will keep that in mind." They spent the rest of the evening talking about lighter things, but after Sarah left, Nora found herself standing in the doorway of her spare room. Boxes of old clothes and books and miscellaneous household items were stacked against the walls. The single window was dusty, and the wooden floor creaked under her feet, but the room had good bones. The walls were solid. The ceiling was high. And if she cleared out the storage, if she gave it a good cleaning, if she added some curtains and maybe a rug, it could be a bedroom again. It could be a place where a child felt safe and welcome. Nora made a decision. She would start clearing out the room tomorrow. Not because she was certain about what the future held, but because she wanted to be ready. She wanted to show Logan and herself that she was serious about this, that she was willing to make space in her life and her home for the possibility of something new. Saturday morning dawned clear and bright, and Nora was ready long before Logan arrived with the wagon. She had packed a basket with sandwiches and apple tarts, dressed in one of her simpler dresses that would not show dirt easily, and braided her brown hair in a practical style that would stay out of her way. When she heard the sound of wagon wheels outside, her heart gave a small leap. Logan jumped down from the driver's seat and came to the door, his hat in his hands. "Morning, Nora. You ready for this?" "As ready as I will ever be," Nora said. "Let me just grab my basket." The ride to the orphanage took about an hour, following a dusty road that wound through scrubby hills dotted with juniper and pinyon pine. Logan had loaded the wagon bed with supplies, sacks of flour and cornmeal, crates of vegetables from the ranch garden, blankets, and even some lumber for repairs. "The ranch donated all this?" Nora asked as they rode. "Most of it," Logan said. "I may have contributed a bit from my own pay as well. I have been setting aside some money each month for the orphanage. It is not much, but every little bit helps." Nora looked at him with new appreciation. "You are a good man, Logan Keller." "I am a man who remembers what it is like to go to bed hungry," Logan said simply. "If I can prevent that for someone else, I will." The orphanage appeared as they crested a hill, a large two-story wooden building that had seen better days. The paint was peeling in places, and several shutters hung at odd angles. But someone had made an effort to brighten the place with flower boxes beneath the windows, even if the flowers were struggling in the Arizona heat. A group of children played in the dusty yard, their shouts and laughter carrying on the morning breeze. Mrs. Carmichael came out to meet them as Logan pulled the wagon to a stop. She was a stout woman in her 50s with gray hair pulled back in a sensible bun and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her daughter Helen, a woman around Nora's age, followed behind with a baby on her hip. "Logan," Mrs. Carmichael said warmly. "You are a sight for sore eyes, and you brought help this time, I see." "Mrs. Carmichael, Helen, this is Nora Jensen," Logan said, jumping down to help Nora from the wagon. "Nora, this is Abigail Carmichael and her daughter Helen Foster." "Pleased to meet you," Nora said, shaking both women's hands. "Logan has told me so much about the work you do here." "Has he now?" Mrs. Carmichael's eyes sparkled with interest. "Well, we can always use an extra pair of hands. Come inside, both of you, and we will get you settled." "Logan, you know where to put the supplies." The interior of the orphanage was clean but sparse. The furniture was mismatched and worn, the walls bare except for a few simple drawings that looked like they had been made by children. But there was warmth here too, in the smell of bread baking and the sound of young voices reciting lessons in a nearby room. Mrs. Carmichael led them to a kitchen where a tall, thin woman was stirring a pot of something that smelled like vegetable soup. "This is Marta," Mrs. Carmichael said. "She helps with the cooking and cleaning." "Marta, we have visitors today." Marta nodded but did not speak, and Mrs. Carmichael explained. "Marta came to us from Mexico. Her English is limited, but she is a hard worker and wonderful with the children." Logan began unloading the supplies with the efficiency of someone who had done this many times before. Nora helped where she could, carrying the lighter items inside and stacking them in the pantry. The children, drawn by the commotion, began to filter into the kitchen. They ranged in age from toddlers to teenagers, in various states of cleanliness and dress. Some were shy, hanging back and watching with wide eyes. Others were bolder, asking Logan questions about what he had brought and whether there were any treats in the boxes. "Everyone, this is Miss Nora," Logan announced. "She is a friend of mine and she has come to help today. I expect you all to be on your best behavior." A chorus of "Yes, sir," and "Hello, Miss Nora" followed. Nora felt overwhelmed by the sheer number of young faces looking at her expectantly. "Hello," she managed. "It is very nice to meet all of you. Can you read stories?" a small girl with dark braids asked. "Mrs. Carmichael reads stories sometimes, but she has been too busy lately." "I can read stories," Nora said, feeling herself relax slightly. Reading she could do. "Do you have any favorite books?" The girl's face lit up. "We have a whole shelf. I will show you." Before Nora could respond, the girl had grabbed her hand and was pulling her toward what turned out to be a small common room. A battered shelf held a modest collection of books, and soon Nora found herself surrounded by children, all clamoring for their favorite story. She ended up reading for nearly an hour, surrounded by a sea of eager faces. The children crowded close, the smallest ones practically in her lap, the older ones leaning over her shoulders to see the pictures. She read about adventures and animals and faraway places, and with each page turned, she felt something in her chest loosen and expand. This was what she had been missing. This noise, this energy, this feeling of being needed. Not for her ability to conceive or bear children, but for her ability to offer comfort and attention and care. When she finally finished the third story, her voice hoarse, Mrs. Carmichael appeared in the doorway. "That is enough for now, children. Miss Nora needs a break, and you all have chores to do before lunch." The children scattered with varying degrees of enthusiasm, though the girl with the braids lingered. "Will you come back?" she asked. "Will you read to us again?" "I would like that very much," Nora said, touching the girl's cheek gently. "What is your name, Lucy?" the girl said. "I am 6. I have been here for 2 years since my mama died. Do you know Logan? Are you his sweetheart?" Nora felt her cheeks warm. "Logan and I are friends. He is nice," Lucy said decisively. "He always brings candy when he visits, but do not tell Mrs. Carmichael. She says too much sugar is bad for us, but Logan sneaks it to us anyway." "I will keep your secret," Nora promised, smiling. Lucy ran off to join the other children, and Nora stood, stretching her stiff muscles. She found Logan in the yard, working with some of the older boys to repair a section of fence that had fallen over. "How is it going?" she asked. Logan looked up, his face streaked with sweat and dust. "Good. This fence should hold for another few months at least. How about you?" "Surviving the children." "More than surviving," Nora said. "Logan, these children are wonderful. Lucy is a delight. And the older ones were so patient with the younger ones during the stories. I can see why you care so much about this place." Logan set down his hammer and came over to her, wiping his hands on his trousers. "They are good kids who have had bad luck. All they need is a chance." "Mrs. Carmichael mentioned that the county wants to close this place," Nora said. "What happens to the children if they do?" Logan's expression darkened. "They get scattered. The younger ones might get placed with families as laborers. The older ones will probably end up in workhouses or worse. Very few will end up in actual homes where they are wanted and cared for." "That is unacceptable," Nora said, surprising herself with the vehemence in her voice. "There has to be something we can do." "That is what I have been thinking," Logan said. "But it takes more than good intentions. It takes money, resources, time. Mrs. Carmichael is doing everything she can, but she cannot do it alone." "Then maybe she does not have to," Nora said. "Maybe we can help, not just with supplies, but with something more permanent." Logan studied her face carefully. "What are you thinking?" "I do not know yet," Nora admitted. "But I know I cannot walk away from this. These children need advocates, people who will fight for them. We could be those people." "We," Logan said again, and there was that note of wonder in his voice. "You keep saying that." "Yes," Nora said. "We, you and me, together." Logan smiled, slow and warm. "I like the sound of that." They worked together for the rest of the day. Nora helped in the kitchen, learning from Marta how to stretch meager supplies to feed 20 hungry children. She mended clothes with Helen, listening to the young woman talk about her hopes of finding enough funding to add a new wing to the building. She played games with the children in the yard, laughing as they taught her complicated rules to simple games. And through it all, she watched Logan. She watched the way he talked to the older boys like they were equals, asking their opinions and valuing their input. She watched the way he let the younger children climb on him like he was a human jungle gym, never once losing patience. She watched the way he handled a crying toddler with surprising gentleness, bouncing the child until the tears turned to giggles. This was the man she was falling in love with. Not just the charming cowboy with the easy smile, but this man who gave his time and money and heart to children who had nothing. This man who saw value where others saw burden. As the sun began to set, Mrs. Carmichael called them in for a simple supper. The children gathered around a long table, squeezing together to make room for everyone. Logan pulled out a chair for Nora, and she found herself seated between Lucy and a quiet boy named Samuel, who could not have been more than 4. The meal was simple. The vegetable soup Marta had been cooking, fresh bread and apples from the ranch. But the atmosphere was anything but simple. The children chattered and laughed, telling stories about their day and arguing good-naturedly about who had done the most chores. Mrs. Carmichael presided over it all with a firm but loving hand, settling disputes and ensuring everyone got enough to eat. This, Nora thought, was what a family looked like. Not perfect, not tidy, but full of life and love and belonging. After supper, as Logan loaded the empty crates back into the wagon, Mrs. Carmichael pulled Nora aside. "That young man is in love with you," she said without preamble. "I have known Logan for 3 years now, and I have never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you." Nora felt her cheeks warm. "We are still figuring things out. Do not take too long," Mrs. Carmichael advised. "Good men are rare, and ones who understand the value of these children are rarer still. If you have found someone who sees them as I do, as Logan does, then you hold on to that." "I intend to," Nora said softly. Mrs. Carmichael smiled. "I am glad to hear it. You are welcome here any time, Nora. The children already adore you and we can always use the help." "I will be back," Nora promised, "soon and often." The ride home was quieter than the ride out. The sun had set, and stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Nora found herself leaning against Logan's shoulder, exhausted but content. "Thank you for today," she said. "Thank you for bringing me here, for letting me see this." "Thank you for coming," Logan said. "Thank you for seeing what I see in those children." "How could I not?" Nora asked. "They are remarkable, every single one of them." Logan was quiet for a moment, then said, "I have been thinking. About what you said earlier about helping in a more permanent way. I have some money saved up. Not a lot, but enough to make a difference. What if we tried to help Mrs. Carmichael keep the orphanage open? What if we became regular supporters, not just with supplies but with actual funding?" "I have some money too," Nora said. "The house is paid for and I make a decent wage at the store. I could contribute." "We would have to be smart about it," Logan said. "Figure out exactly what they need, what the county's requirements are, how much it would cost to meet them. But if we worked together, if we pooled our resources, we might be able to make a real difference." "I want to do more than just keep the place open," Nora said, the idea forming as she spoke. "I want to give those children a better life. Better food, better clothes, better education. I want them to have opportunities, not just survival." "That is a tall order," Logan said, but he was smiling. "But I think we might be able to pull it off, if we are serious about this, if we commit to it fully." "I am serious," Nora said, "more serious than I have been about anything in a long time." Logan slowed the wagon and turned to look at her in the moonlight. "Nora Jensen, you continue to surprise me. When I first started courting you, I hoped you might be willing to accept me despite my past. I never imagined you would embrace my crazy ideas about taking in orphans." "They are not crazy ideas," Nora said. "They are beautiful ideas. And I am not accepting you despite anything, Logan. I am falling in love with you because of everything you are." She had not meant to say it quite so directly, but the words were out now, hanging in the night air between them. Logan's eyes widened, and then that slow, wonderful smile spread across his face. "You are falling in love with me?" he asked. "Yes," Nora said, deciding there was no point in being coy. "Is that a problem?" "Not even a little bit," Logan said, "because I fell in love with you months ago. I have just been waiting for you to catch up." He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, but Nora did not want to pull away. She closed the distance between them, meeting him halfway, and when their lips touched, it felt like coming home. The kiss was gentle and sweet and full of promise. When they finally pulled apart, Logan rested his forehead against hers. "We are really doing this, are not we?" he murmured. "Building a life together, taking on the world, saving orphans." "Yes," Nora said, "we really are." They started back toward town, and Nora felt like something fundamental had shifted in her world. For years, she had defined herself by what she could not do, by what her body could not provide. But now she was beginning to see that there were other ways to build a family, other ways to leave a mark on the world. She thought about Lucy with her dark braids and her love of stories. She thought about Samuel with his quiet ways and his need for gentle affection. She thought about all the other children at the orphanage, each one with their own personality and needs and dreams. And she thought about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, she and Logan could give some of those children what they needed most: a home. Over the next several weeks, Nora and Logan became regular fixtures at the orphanage. They visited every Saturday, and sometimes during the week as well, bringing supplies and staying to help with whatever needed doing. Nora taught reading lessons and mended clothes and listened to the children's stories. Logan made repairs and taught the older boys useful skills and played endless games of tag in the dusty yard. But they also began to dig deeper into the orphanage's finances and the county's requirements. Mrs. Carmichael opened her books to them, showing them exactly how dire the situation was. "We are 3 months behind on the property taxes," she explained one evening as they sat in her small office. "The roof needs significant repairs before the winter rains come. And the county inspector has given us until the end of the year to make improvements to the kitchen and sleeping quarters, or they will revoke our license." "How much would all of that cost?" Logan asked. Mrs. Carmichael handed him a piece of paper with figures written in her careful script. Logan whistled low. "That is a substantial amount. More than we can raise through donations alone," Mrs. Carmichael said. "Believe me, I have tried. The church helps when they can and a few local businesses contribute, but it is never enough. People have their own families to worry about. Orphans are easy to forget when you do not see them every day." Nora felt anger kindle in her chest. These children are not forgettable. They are human beings who deserve the same chances as any other child. "I agree," Mrs. Carmichael said. "But convincing the county of that is another matter entirely. They see this place as a drain on resources. They would rather shut us down and pretend the problem does not exist." "What if we could raise the money?" Nora asked. "All of it. Everything you need to meet the county's requirements and get caught up on the taxes. Would that be enough to keep the place open?" "Yes," Mrs. Carmichael said. "If we could prove financial stability and make the necessary improvements, the county would have no grounds to shut us down." "But Nora, that kind of money does not just appear out of thin air." "Maybe not," Nora said, "but that does not mean we should not try." On the ride home, Logan was quiet. Nora could tell he was thinking, working through possibilities in his mind. "What if we sold my horse?" he said finally. "Blue is a fine animal. I could probably get a decent price for him." "Absolutely not," Nora said firmly. "Logan, that horse has been with you for years. You love that animal." "I love those children more," Logan said simply. "I can get another horse eventually. Those kids do not have time to wait." Nora felt tears prick at her eyes. "You are the best man I have ever known, but I will not let you sell your horse. There has to be another way." "Then we will find it," Logan said. "Together." They spent the next week brainstorming ideas. Nora suggested organizing a fundraising social, and Logan thought they could auction off services like fence repair and horse training. They approached businesses in town, asking for donations and sponsorships. They even visited other churches in the county, making their case for why the orphanage deserved support. The response was mixed. Some people were generous, offering whatever they could spare. Others were skeptical, questioning whether the orphanage was worth saving or whether the children would be better off being placed with working families. More than once, Nora had to bite her tongue to keep from saying something uncharitable. But slowly, painfully, the donation fund began to grow. It was not enough, not nearly enough, but it was a start. One evening, about 6 weeks after their first visit to the orphanage, Nora invited Logan to dinner at her house. She had spent the afternoon cooking his favorite meal, a hearty beef stew with fresh bread, and she had something important to discuss with him. Logan arrived right on time, his hair still damp from washing up after work. He presented her with a small bouquet of wildflowers, and the gesture made her heart swell. "You did not have to do that," she said, taking the flowers and finding a jar to put them in. "I wanted to," Logan said. "You have been working so hard on the fundraising efforts. I wanted you to know how much I appreciate it." They ate dinner at the small table in Nora's kitchen, talking about their day and the progress they were making with the orphanage fund. After they finished, Nora poured them both coffee and took a deep breath. "I have been thinking," she said, "about the money we need to raise." "Have you thought of something new?" Logan asked. "In a way," Nora said. "I own this house outright. It is worth a decent amount of money. If I sold it, we could probably raise most of what we need for the orphanage." Logan set down his coffee cup. "Nora, you cannot sell your house." "Why not?" Nora asked. "It is mine to sell, and it is just a house, Logan. Those children need a home more than I need this particular building." "But where would you live?" Logan asked. "You cannot just make yourself homeless." Nora took another deep breath. This was the part she had been nervous about. "I was hoping you might have some thoughts on that." Logan looked confused for a moment, and then understanding dawned in his eyes. "Nora, are you saying what I think you are saying?" "I am saying that I love you," Nora said. "I am saying that I want to spend my life with you. I am saying that if we are going to do this, if we are going to save the orphanage and take in children, maybe we should do it together, officially, as husband and wife." Logan stood up from the table so quickly his chair nearly toppled over. He came around to Nora's side and pulled her to her feet, his hands gentle on her arms. "Are you proposing to me?" he asked, and his voice was rough with emotion. "I suppose I am," Nora said. "Is that improper? Should I have waited for you to ask?" "I have been carrying my mother's ring around for 3 weeks, trying to find the perfect moment," Logan said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple gold band with a small garnet stone. "I was going to ask you at the orphanage in front of the children, because that is where we found each other, really. But this is better. This is just us." He dropped to one knee right there in her kitchen, still holding her hand. "Nora Jensen, you are the bravest, kindest, most stubborn woman I have ever met. You have shown me that family is not about blood. It is about choice. It is about showing up day after day and choosing to love someone, choosing to build a life together. I want to build that life with you. I want to fill a house with children who need us. I want to grow old watching you read stories and mend scraped knees and teach our kids how to be good people. Will you marry me?" "Yes," Nora said, tears streaming down her face now. "Yes, of course I will marry you." Logan slipped the ring onto her finger, and then he stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a passion that made her forget everything else. When they finally broke apart, they were both laughing and crying at the same time. "We are really doing this," Logan said. "We are getting married and saving an orphanage and becoming parents all at once." "We are," Nora confirmed. "And I think we should still sell my house. We can use the money for the orphanage and we can find a place together. Maybe something bigger, with more room for the children we are going to take in." "About that," Logan said, "I have been thinking too. What if instead of just donating money to keep the orphanage open, we actually took on a more permanent role? Mrs. Carmichael is not getting any younger. She has been hinting that she wants to retire. Let Helen and her husband take over some of the daily responsibilities. What if we offered to help run the place? Not as owners, but as partners. We could live there, help care for all the children, not just adopt one or two." Nora felt her heart race. "You want us to move to the orphanage?" "I want us to make it a real home," Logan said. "Not just a place where children wait to be wanted, but a place where they are wanted from the moment they arrive. I want to hire more staff so Mrs. Carmichael is not so overwhelmed. I want to fix the roof and paint the walls and plant a real garden. I want those kids to have stability and security and adults they can depend on." "That is an enormous commitment," Nora said. "It would change everything about our lives." "I know," Logan said. "And if it is too much, if you want a quieter life, I understand. We can still get married, still adopt a child or two, still help the orphanage from the outside." "But Nora, when I think about our future, when I imagine what happiness looks like, I see that building full of children and I see us there with them." Nora thought about the spare room she had been clearing out, the room she had imagined as a nursery for one child. She thought about how small that vision seemed now compared to what Logan was proposing. She thought about Lucy asking her to come back and read stories. She thought about Samuel's shy smile when she sat with him at meals. She thought about all the other children at the orphanage, each one deserving of love and stability and a chance at a real childhood. "Yes," she said. "Yes, let us do it. Let us sell the house, raise the money to save the orphanage and move there ourselves. Let us make it a real home for all of them." Logan picked her up and spun her around, both of them laughing like children. "You are incredible, do you know that?" "I am in love," Nora said. "That makes people do incredible things." They stayed up late into the night making plans. They would get married as soon as possible. A simple ceremony with just close friends and family. They would sell Nora's house and use the proceeds to pay off the orphanage debts and make the necessary repairs. Logan would talk to the owner of the Double R Ranch about changing his employment situation, maybe working part-time so he could help at the orphanage while still bringing in some income. Nora would quit her job at the general store and dedicate herself full-time to the children. It was ambitious, perhaps even foolish, but it felt right in a way nothing else ever had. The next morning, Logan went to talk to Mrs. Carmichael about their plan while Nora visited the bank to inquire about selling her house. The banker, Mr. Westfield, was surprised by her request, but agreed to help her find a buyer. Houses in Prescott were in demand, and he was confident they could sell it within a month or two. When Nora met Logan at the orphanage that afternoon, she found him in the yard surrounded by children. Mrs. Carmichael stood nearby, and when she saw Nora, she beckoned her over. "Logan has told me about your proposal," Mrs. Carmichael said, and Nora could not tell from her expression whether she was pleased or not. "It is generous, perhaps too generous." "It is not too generous," Nora said. "It is what is needed." Mrs. Carmichael studied her for a long moment. "You understand what you are taking on. These children, they have been through trauma. Some of them have behavioral problems. Some of them wake up screaming in the night. Some of them do not trust adults because every adult in their life has let them down. This is not going to be easy." "I know," Nora said, "but I would rather do something difficult and worthwhile than something easy and meaningless. Logan and I want to be here. We want to help. Please let us." Mrs. Carmichael's stern expression finally softened into a smile. "Then I accept. God knows I have been praying for a miracle, and maybe you too are the answer. But I have conditions. You do not sweep in here and change everything. You learn from me and from Helen and from Marta. You listen to the children. You go slow. Can you agree to that? Yes, Nora said. We want to learn. We want to do this right. Then welcome to the family, Mrs. Carmichael said, pulling Nora into a brief but warm hug. The next 2 months passed in a whirlwind. Nora's house sold quickly to a young couple just starting out, and the money was immediately put toward the orphanage. Logan negotiated a new arrangement with his employer, working 3 days a week at the ranch and spending the rest of his time at the orphanage. They organized a large fundraising social in town that brought in additional donations. By the end of November, they had enough money not only to pay off the debts and make the required repairs, but also to create a small emergency fund for future needs. The county inspector came in early December and grudgingly approved the improvements. The orphanage license was renewed for another year, and on a cold but clear December morning, Logan Keller and Nora Jensen were married in the small church in Prescott. The ceremony was simple, with Sarah standing as Nora's witness and one of Logan's friends from the ranch standing for him. But the church was full, packed with townspeople who had come to support them, and with all 20 children from the orphanage, scrubbed clean and dressed in their best clothes. Lucy served as the flower girl, taking her job very seriously and scattering petals with great concentration. Samuel, who had grown attached to Logan, stood close to the front, watching with wide eyes. When Reverend Thornton pronounced them husband and wife, the children cheered, and Logan kissed Nora to the sound of applause and laughter. It was chaotic and noisy and perfect. The reception was held at the orphanage itself, with food donated by half the town and music provided by a local fiddler who refused payment. The children ran wild in the yard, playing games and eating cake, while the adults toasted the new couple and wished them well. As the sun began to set, Nora found herself standing on the porch of the orphanage, watching the scene before her. Logan came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "Happy?" he asked. "Deliriously," Nora said, leaning back against him. "I never thought I could be this happy." "This is just the beginning," Logan said. "We have a lot of work ahead of us." "I am ready for it," Nora said. "All of it." They moved into the orphanage the next week, taking over a small apartment on the first floor that had been used for storage. It was not much, just a bedroom and a small sitting area, but it was theirs. More importantly, it put them right in the middle of the action, available whenever the children needed them. The first few months were an adjustment. Nora learned quickly that caring for 20 children was vastly different from visiting them occasionally. There were disputes to settle and fears to soothe and endless meals to prepare. Logan worked from dawn until well past dark, fixing things that broke, teaching the older boys to do repairs, and establishing routines that gave the children structure and security. But there were also moments of profound joy. The first time Samuel called Nora, "Mama Nora," she cried. The first time Lucy stopped having nightmares because she felt safe in her bed. The first time one of the older boys, a teenager named Marcus who had been sullen and withdrawn, smiled at a joke Logan made. Mrs. Carmichael was true to her word, teaching them everything she knew about running an orphanage. Helen became a good friend, and even Marta warmed up to them, teaching Nora family recipes and tricks for stretching food to feed so many mouths. As winter turned to spring, Logan and Nora settled into their new life. They developed rhythms and routines. Nora taught lessons every morning, covering reading, writing, and arithmetic. Logan worked with the older children on practical skills. Mrs. Carmichael handled the administrative work, and continued to seek funding from various sources. Helen managed the daily household operations with Marta's help. But one evening in late April, as Nora was tucking the younger children into bed, Lucy tugged on her sleeve. "Mama Nora, are you and Mr. Logan going to adopt some of us?" she asked. "Really and truly adopt so we would be your actual children?" Nora's heart clenched. She had been wondering when this question would come up. She knelt down so she was eye level with Lucy. "Would you like that?" "To be adopted," Lucy nodded vigorously. "I want to belong to someone. I want to be chosen." "Oh, sweetheart," Nora said, pulling the little girl into a hug. "You are already chosen. Mr. Logan and I chose to be here, chose to make this our home because of you and all the other children. You belong here." "But it is not the same as being really adopted," Lucy said. "Sarah from town, she says she has a mama and a papa who belong just to her. I want that too." Nora looked up and saw Logan standing in the doorway. He had obviously heard the conversation. He came over and sat on the edge of Lucy's bed. "What if we adopted more than one of you?" he asked. "What if we made it official for several children?" Lucy's eyes went wide. "Could you do that?" "I think we could," Logan said, looking at Nora. "If your mama Nora agrees." Nora felt tears prick at her eyes. "I agree. I absolutely agree." Over the next few days, Nora and Logan had serious conversations with Mrs. Carmichael and among themselves. Legally adopting children from the orphanage was complicated but not impossible. It would require paperwork and approval from the county. But as the couple now running the orphanage, they were in a good position to make it happen. The question was, which children? "I think we know," Logan said one night as they sat together in their small sitting room. "There are 4 who have attached themselves to us more than the others. 4 who need the security of being legally part of a family." Nora nodded. She had been thinking the same thing. "Lucy, Samuel, and Marcus," Logan said. "He acts tough, but he is terrified of being sent away when he turns 18. If we adopt him, he has a family to fall back on, a place to come home to." "And Henrietta," Nora added, thinking of the quiet 8-year-old girl who helped in the kitchen and rarely spoke, but who had started following Nora around like a shadow. "She has been here longer than any of them." 5 years, Mrs. Carmichael said. "Nobody has ever wanted her because she is too quiet, too withdrawn, but she is starting to open up." "Then those are our 4, Logan said. "Lucy, Samuel, Marcus, and Henrietta. We will talk to them first, make sure they want this, and then we will make it legal." The conversations with the children were emotional. Lucy cried happy tears and hugged Nora so hard she could barely breathe. Samuel, who was only 5, did not fully understand what adoption meant, but he knew it meant Nora and Logan would be his parents forever, and that was enough to make him smile. Marcus, who was 16 and trying so hard to be tough, broke down crying when Logan told him he would always have a home and a family, even when he was grown. And Henrietta, sweet Henrietta, simply whispered thank you and held Nora's hand for the rest of the day. The legal process took several months, but by late summer it was official. Lucy, Samuel, Marcus, and Henrietta Keller became legal members of Logan and Nora's family. There was a small celebration at the orphanage, and the 4 children wore their new names with pride. But even as Nora celebrated with her new children, she was aware that the other children at the orphanage were watching. Some were happy for their friends. Others were clearly envious, wishing they could be chosen too. That night, after all the children were in bed, Nora raised the concern with Logan. "I am worried we created division," she said. "The adopted children versus the ones who are still waiting. I never wanted to make anyone feel less than." Logan was quiet for a moment. "You are right." "But Nora, we cannot adopt all 20 children. That is not practical, and it would not be fair to them. They deserve individual attention, and we can only spread ourselves so thin." "I know," Nora said, "but maybe we can make sure they all know they are valued. Maybe we can work harder to find families for the others. Maybe we can be advocates, not just caregivers." "That is a good idea," Logan said. "We can start reaching out to families in the area, hosting events where potential adoptive parents can meet the children. We can show people that these kids are not problems to be solved, but children who deserve love." And so they did. Over the next year, Logan and Nora threw themselves into not just running the orphanage, but actively working to find permanent homes for the children in their care. They organized picnics and socials, where families from all over the county could come and interact with the children in a relaxed setting. They worked with Reverend Thornton to spread the word through various churches. They even convinced the local newspaper to run stories about individual children, highlighting their personalities and talents. The efforts paid off. Slowly but steadily, children began finding families. Some were adopted. Others were taken in as foster children with the option of adoption later. Each placement was bittersweet. Nora and Logan celebrated every child who found a permanent home, but they also grieved the loss of each personality, each smile, each unique presence in their household. Lucy struggled the most when her best friend, a girl named Emma, was adopted by a family in a neighboring town. She cried for days, convinced she would never see Emma again. Nora and Logan promised to arrange visits and wrote letters back and forth, but it was hard to watch Lucy grieve. "I understand now why you wanted to adopt me," Lucy said one evening as Nora was braiding her hair, "so I would never have to leave." "Yes," Nora said softly, "so you would always know you have a place to belong." "I am glad you chose me," Lucy said. "I love you, Mama Nora." "I love you too, sweet girl," Nora said, "more than you could ever know." As the seasons changed and years began to pass, the orphanage transformed. The building that had been shabby and overcrowded became a warm, welcoming home. The repairs were maintained. The meals became more nutritious. The children were better clothed and better educated. But more than the physical changes, there was a shift in the atmosphere. Under Logan and Nora's care with Mrs. Carmichael's wisdom and Helen's organization, the orphanage became known throughout the territory as a place where children were not just housed, but truly cared for. A place where they were prepared for life, whether that meant adoption into a new family, aging out and starting their own lives, or finding employment and independence. Mrs. Carmichael eventually retired, though she still visited often and continued to offer advice. Helen and her husband took over more of the administrative duties, while Logan and Nora focused on the day-to-day care and education of the children. Their 4 adopted children grew and thrived. Lucy became a voracious reader and started helping teach the younger children. Samuel overcame his shyness and discovered a talent for working with animals, spending hours helping Logan care for the orphanage's small collection of chickens and goats. Marcus completed his education and decided to stay on at the orphanage as staff, helping maintain the buildings and teaching the older boys carpentry skills. Henrietta slowly emerged from her shell, revealing a gift for cooking and a quiet strength that made her a natural leader among the other girls. On a warm evening in June, 4 years after they were married, Nora and Logan sat on the porch of the orphanage watching the children play in the yard. The building behind them had been expanded with a new wing that housed additional bedrooms. The garden was thriving, providing fresh vegetables for their meals. The roof was solid. The finances were stable. Marcus was showing a group of boys how to build a birdhouse. Lucy was organizing an elaborate game that seemed to involve a lot of running and squealing. Samuel was in the chicken coop, collecting eggs for tomorrow's breakfast. Henrietta was in the kitchen with Marta, preparing a special dessert for dinner. "You ever regret it?" Nora asked Logan. "Do you ever wish we had chosen a simpler life?" Logan took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. "Not for a single second. This life is chaotic and exhausting and sometimes frustrating, but it is also full of meaning. Every day we are making a difference. Every child who leaves here with hope and skills and confidence is proof that what we are doing matters." "I never imagined I could be this happy," Nora said. "When I was younger, before the fever, I had such specific ideas about what my life would look like. I thought happiness meant a husband and a house full of biological children. I thought anything else would be settling for less. And now," Logan prompted. "Now I know that what I have is not less," Nora said. "It is more. It is bigger and messier and more complicated than anything I could have imagined, but it is also more fulfilling. I did not birth these children, but they are mine in every way that matters. I fought for them. I chose them. I show up for them every single day. That is what makes a mother." Logan squeezed her hand. "You are an extraordinary mother and an extraordinary woman. I am the luckiest man alive." "I am pretty lucky too," Nora said, leaning her head on his shoulder. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun begin its descent toward the horizon. The children's voices created a symphony of sound, each one distinct and beloved. Lucy ran up to the porch, breathless and flushed. "Mama Nora, Papa Logan, can we have the social next week, please? We have been planning it for months, and all the children want to show their families what we have been learning." The orphanage had started hosting quarterly socials, where the children could invite any extended family they might have, or former foster families, or just members of the community who cared about them. It was a way to maintain connections and show the children that they were part of a larger community. "Of course we can," Nora said. "Have you and Henrietta finalized the menu?" Lucy nodded eagerly. "Yes, and Marcus said he would help set up tables in the yard, and Samuel is making decorations with the little ones. It is going to be wonderful." "Then it sounds like we have a lot of work to do," Logan said with a smile. "Better get back to your planning." Lucy hugged them both quickly and then dashed off to share the news with the other children. Nora watched her go, this little girl who had asked to be chosen and who had blossomed into a confident, joyful child. "She is going to be quite something when she grows up," Logan observed. "She already is," Nora said. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Nora reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From that church social 6 years ago when she had tried to push Logan away, to this porch where they sat surrounded by the life they had built together. She thought about the confession she had made that night, the truth she had carried like a burden for so many years. She thought about Logan's response, the way he had looked at her with complete acceptance and said those words that had changed everything. "The orphanage has plenty who need us." He had been right. The orphanage had been full of children who needed them, and they had needed those children just as much. Together, they had created something beautiful. Not a perfect family, but a real one. Not a fairy tale, but something better. A love story built on choice and commitment and the daily decision to show up for each other. "What are you thinking about?" Logan asked. "About how far we have come," Nora said. "About how that night at the church social, I thought I was telling you why we could not be together. I thought my inability to have children was an ending, but you saw it as a beginning." "Because it was a beginning," Logan said. "The beginning of this, of us, of all of this." He gestured to the yard, the building, the children. "I love you," Nora said. "I do not tell you that enough, but I do. I love you more than I thought it was possible to love someone." "I know," Logan said, pulling her closer. "And I love you, not despite anything, but because of everything. Because you are brave enough to let yourself care. Because you chose to build something meaningful instead of protecting yourself from pain. Because you are the best partner I could have ever hoped for." They kissed there on the porch, a long, slow kiss that spoke of years together and years still to come. When they broke apart, Samuel was standing at the bottom of the porch steps, holding a basket of eggs and trying not to giggle. "Are you two being mushy again?" he asked, his nose wrinkled. "Absolutely," Logan said without shame. "Get used to it, kiddo. Your mama Nora and I are very much in love." Samuel rolled his eyes in the dramatic way only a 9-year-old could manage. Grown-ups are weird. But he was smiling as he said it, clearly pleased to have parents who loved each other. As the evening turned to night, the children were called in for supper. The long table was crowded and noisy, filled with voices and laughter and the occasional squabble over who got the last piece of bread. Nora and Logan sat at opposite ends, keeping order but also enjoying the chaos. After supper came chores, then stories for the younger children, then the gradual process of getting everyone ready for bed. By the time the house was finally quiet, Nora and Logan were exhausted. They collapsed onto their own bed, holding hands in the darkness. "Another day done," Logan murmured. "Another good day," Nora corrected. "Even with all the chaos, it was a good day." "They are all good days," Logan said. "As long as I am with you and our family, they are all good days." Nora smiled in the darkness. She had never imagined this life, but she would not trade it for anything. She had 4 children who called her mama. She had a husband who loved her completely. She had a purpose that filled her days with meaning. She had everything she had never known she needed. The years continued to pass, each one bringing new challenges and new joys. The orphanage became a fixture in the community, known for its excellent care and its success in placing children in loving homes. Nora and Logan became respected figures, sought out for advice on child care and adoption. Their 4 children grew into remarkable young adults. Lucy became a teacher, deciding to open a small school near the orphanage where she could work with children who needed extra help. Samuel took over management of the orphanage's expanded farm, which now included cows and pigs as well as chickens and goats. Marcus started his own carpentry business, but continued to live at the orphanage and help with repairs. Henrietta married a kind young man from town and started her own family, but she visited often and helped train new staff in the kitchen. And through it all, Logan and Nora remained partners in every sense of the word. They argued sometimes, because 2 strong-willed people living in close quarters and running a large operation were bound to disagree. But they always talked through their differences, always came back to their shared commitment to each other and to the children in their care. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Logan surprised Nora by organizing a celebration at the orphanage. All 4 of their children were there, along with dozens of former orphanage residents who had found permanent homes over the years. The yard was decorated with lanterns and ribbons, and tables groaned under the weight of contributed food. Mrs. Carmichael, now in her 70s but still sharp as ever, gave a toast. 10 years ago, these 2 young people walked into my office with a crazy idea. They wanted to save this orphanage. They wanted to make it a real home for children who had never known one. I thought they were naive. I thought they would burn out within a year. I am delighted to say I was completely wrong. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Logan and Nora did not just save this orphanage, Mrs. Carmichael continued. They transformed it. They showed us all what is possible when you combine love with action, when you stop making excuses and start making a difference. Thanks to them, Over 50 children have found permanent homes. Dozens more have aged out of this facility with the skills and confidence to make good lives for themselves. And 4 very special children found parents who chose them and never let them go. Lucy, Samuel, Marcus, and Henrietta stood together, beaming with pride. Marcus had his arm around his mother's shoulders, and Lucy was openly wiping tears from her eyes. So please join me in celebrating not just 10 years of marriage, but 10 years of transformation, Mrs. Carmichael finished. To Logan and Nora Keller, to Logan and Nora. The crowd echoed, raising their glasses. Later, after the party had wound down and most of the guests had left, Nora and Logan found themselves back on the porch where they had spent so many evenings. Their 4 children joined them, Marcus and Samuel sitting on the steps, Lucy and Henrietta in the rocking chairs. "Tell us again how you met," Lucy said. She had heard the story dozens of times, but she never seemed to tire of it. "Your papa saw me across a crowded church social and decided I was the woman he wanted to spend his life with," Nora said with a smile. "That is not quite how it happened," Logan protested. "I saw you and thought you seemed interesting. It took several months of persistent courting before I decided I was in love with you. And Mama Nora kept trying to push you away," Lucy continued, knowing the story by heart, "because she thought she could not give you children. But Papa had a better idea," Samuel added. "He said the orphanage had plenty of children who needed us." "And he was right," Henrietta said softly. "We did need you, we all did." Marcus, who usually kept his emotions hidden, said, "You saved my life, both of you. I was so angry when I first came here. I was convinced nobody could want me, that I was broken. But you showed me different. You taught me that being wanted is not about being perfect. It is about being seen and accepted exactly as you are." Nora felt tears stream down her face. "Oh, Marcus, you were never broken. You were just hurt. And you healed yourself. We just provided the space for you to do it." "You provided more than space," Marcus insisted. "You provided love, real, unconditional love, the kind I had never experienced before." Logan cleared his throat roughly, clearly fighting his own emotions. "You 4 are the best thing that ever happened to us. The absolute best. I hope you know that." "We know," Lucy said. "And we hope you know that you are the best thing that ever happened to us." They sat together as the stars came out, this family formed not by blood but by choice. They talked and laughed and remembered all the moments that had brought them to this place. Eventually, the children drifted off to their own beds or homes, leaving Logan and Nora alone on the porch. The building behind them was quiet now, all the children asleep. In the darkness, they could hear the gentle sounds of the night, crickets chirping, a distant coyote howling, the wind rustling through the trees. "Are you happy?" Logan asked, echoing the question Nora had asked him years ago. "Beyond measure," Nora said. "I have everything I ever wanted, even though it looks nothing like what I thought I wanted." "That is the beauty of it," Logan said. "We did not let fear or disappointment or other people's expectations define us. We defined ourselves. We chose our own path." "We chose each other," Nora corrected. "And we chose those 4 amazing human beings. And we chose to open our home and our hearts to dozens of other children over the years. Every choice led us here." Logan stood and pulled Nora to her feet, taking her in his arms for a slow dance, even though there was no music playing. "Here is to 10 more years," he said, "and 10 after that, and as many as we are blessed with." "Here is to a lifetime," Nora agreed. "A lifetime of choosing each other, choosing love, choosing to make a difference." They danced there in the moonlight, 2 people who had found each other against the odds and built something beautiful together. The orphanage stood solid behind them, a testament to what was possible when love was paired with action, when empathy was backed by commitment. Inside those walls, children slept soundly, knowing they were safe and valued. Some would be adopted into forever families. Some would age out and make their own way in the world. But all of them would carry with them the knowledge that they had been cared for, that they had mattered, that they had been seen and chosen and loved. And on the porch, Logan and Nora continued to dance, their hearts full, their purpose clear, their love as strong as it had ever been. They had started with a confession and a counter-offer, with a woman's fear and a man's wisdom. They had built a life on that foundation, brick by brick, choice by choice, day by day. The orphanage had plenty who needed them, Logan had said all those years ago. And they had been exactly what the orphanage needed in return. Two people willing to see past their own limitations, to embrace a bigger vision of family, to choose love over and over again. As they swayed together in the darkness, Nora thought about the girl she had been at 24, the one who had carried her infertility like a shameful secret. That girl had thought she was broken. That girl had believed she had nothing to offer. How wrong she had been. How beautifully, wonderfully wrong. She was not broken. She was complete. She was whole. She was exactly who she was meant to be, and she was loved. Not despite her inability to bear children, but as the complete package of who she was. Her strengths and her fears, her dreams and her sorrows, her past and her future. Logan whispered in her ear, "Thank you for taking a chance on me. Thank you for believing we could build this life together." "Thank you for seeing me," Nora whispered back. "Thank you for loving all of me, not just the easy parts." They held each other close as the night deepened, two souls who had found their home in each other and in the family they had created. The road ahead would bring more challenges, more children who needed them, more opportunities to make a difference. But they would face it all together as they had faced everything else, with love, with commitment, with the unshakable belief that family was not about biology but about showing up, day after day, and choosing each other. The orphanage had plenty who needed them, and they had needed the orphanage just as much. It was a perfect match. And as Logan kissed Nora under the Arizona stars, surrounded by the sleeping children they had fought for and loved with all their hearts, they both knew that this was what happily ever after really looked like, not perfect, not easy, but real and true and worth every moment, worth everything.